Hey, good evening, everybody. Just doing a quick sound check.
I can hear you, Mara.
We can hear you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, we are right at 7 o'clock, so I will call tonight's city council meeting to order. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Here.
Councilmember Munson,
Here.
Councilmember Byström,
Here.
Councilmember Valento,
Here.
and Mayor Bain.
Here, I'd like to invite everybody to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to shut off your camera before you rise to do so, you can do that in the bottom left of your Zoom tray. I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag.
flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it
for which
stands,
it stands, one nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Council, I will have a couple of changes for the agenda this evening. Just a couple minor notes to accommodate, actually just one change to the agenda. I will have a change to the consent agenda when we get there. But for the regular agenda, just a heads up on timing. We've got a staff timing conflict for the presentation for resolution of 05242105, which is the Forest Hills Preserve. So there is a chance we may bump that later in the meeting, potentially after discussion items or potentially even after staff or and council updates. But we will have it on the agenda. We'll just play the timing by ear based on when we have staff available. So no earlier than what it's planned on the agenda. We just may bump it back. And so if we could, so no official change to the agenda, just a heads up on timing. And with that, if we could have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move approvals as outlined.
I'll second.
Motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Husnick. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson, Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Hi. With that, our agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is open forum. Open forum is any interested party's opportunity to speak to council on any topic of their choosing. And Karen, do we have any attendees for open forum this evening or any written submissions?
Mayor Bain, I haven't received any written submissions, and let me take a look here. I don't have any attendees waiting to speak in open forum either.
Very good. Thank you. We will move on to the consent agenda. We have a staff request to move item 6K to the regular agenda. And so if there is a motion to approve, if we could just move 6K to the regular agenda. Actually, I'll make a motion to approve items A through J and items L and M. Is there a second or any other changes?
Second.
And motion and a second. Karen, could we have a roll call on the consent agenda?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
Mayor Bain.
Aye, consent agenda is approved. The next item on the agenda is item 6K. This was moved for just a minor change recommended by staff. Jamie, can you just give council a quick update?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, just as Mayor Bain mentioned, just wanted to make note of a very minor change on section 11 in the contract provided in the packet for insurance. We did have 1.5 million listed for the insurance requirement, and we will just seek approval with that being changed to 2 million per occurrence for the liability insurance. And I did confirm with Mr. McBride that his insurance policy does cover that. So just a minor update, but looking for approval of this contract with section 11, changing 1.5 million to 2 million for the insurance.
Thank you, Jamie. Council, any questions or motion?
I move approval of the Arts in the Park Entertainment Promoter Contract with the change in insurance from 1.5 to 2 million as outlined by Jamie Mouche.
And I will second that.
The motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Munson. And Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Aye, motion's approved. Moving on to our regular agenda this evening, we have item 7A, which is the resolution 05242103, which is a donation. And Chief Newman is here to present this evening.
Mayor and members of the council, we received a $125 donation from Peter and Colleen Nora. We'll be using their donation for fire prevention. I'd like to thank Peter and Colleen for their generous donation.
Thank you, Chief. I would move that we approve with gratitude. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second from Councilmember Husnick. And Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Motion's approved. Our next item this evening is item 7B, resolution 05242104, Fitzgerald Flats, and Donovan is walking us through this. Hey, Donovan.
Thank you. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to present the preliminary and final plat applications for Fitzgerald's Flats. This is, if that Fitzgerald's Flats sounds familiar, it's because it's the site of the Common Bond Communities apartment building that the Planning Commission did approve. Also, is the subject of a zoning map amendment and PUD amendment from last summer for that building, which has not started construction. And the final piece in creating the for that project right now is to create a lot for that. Just as a reminder, I'll share with you the location of the parcel. It's just kind of southwest of the transit center, southeast of the Headwaters Service Center here. It's currently a vacant lot, and essentially what you see is, the upper part of it, of basically half of this lot shown now in blue. The submitted survey shows two conforming lots. And the reason why we're reviewing this as a plat is that because it's an outlot, it's Headwaters Village, Outlot A, it needs to be actually platted as a lot, even though it's what we'd otherwise do as a minor subdivision application. And so, and this was, has been the outlot since May of 2007. And now the owner, Fenway Investments, Len Pratt, has found a buyer for a portion of it. And that's represented by Sally Rabin, who's with us tonight from Common Bond Communities. And I will show you the plat itself that shows the two lots. This is the upper one, more northern westerly lot is the site of the proposed apartment building that has been approved by the Planning Commission in the site plan review. It has drainage utility easements that are approved by the city engineer. Our Bolton and Menk engineer did review these and finds it meets city standards. And so the staff recommendation is for approval with the conditions that the city approved plat and all required documents are recorded with Washington County. And prior to any construction, all concerns of city engineer must be met, as well as building permits obtained and Rice Creek Watershed District's permits obtained. With that, I'm happy to take any questions from City Council.
Thank you, Donovan. Council, what questions may you have of Donovan this evening?
Mayor Bain, I was just going to say I don't have any questions. I feel like this project has been brought before us before, so pretty familiar. And the Planning Commission didn't seem to have any concerns, so that's always a good feeling.
Correct. Donovan, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor and members of council, I should say the important piece is that in your packets on page 105 is resolution 05-24-2104 for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Donovan. Council, any questions before we move to resolution? I'm not hearing any, as Councilmember Munson stated. We are at the final stages of this project, and it has had a number of rounds of both council and Planning Commission input. So anyone ready for a motion tonight? Page 105 of our packet.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 05-24-21-04, a resolution approving preliminary and final plat for Fitzgerald Flats, Common Bond Community.
And I'll second it, Mara.
Fantastic. We have a motion from Councilmember Munson and a second from Councilmember Husnick. Any further discussion on this item? All right, Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Aye. Motion is approved. Ms. Rabin, thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate seeing you and wish you luck on your project.
Thank you so much. We hope to break ground in August, so pretty exciting.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
With that, we will move to our next agenda item, which is 7C, the Airport Business Park CBRE listing agreement. And Dan.
Mayor, members of council, before you tonight is the listing agreement for the two remaining parcels in the Airport Business Park. Right now, we're asking them to be listed with CBRE, which is the firm that is currently listing the Headwaters 123-acre parcel for the city of Forest Lake. Enclosed in your packet is a map of the two parcels that we are asking to be listed with CBRE this evening. I apologize, I cannot get them on my screen tonight since I'm in chambers and my Zoom meeting is on a different computer, so I can't do a screen share to show them, but the map is included in your packet, and it does show the two parcels. CBRE is proposing a listing price of $1.50 per square foot for the two parcels. This is in line with the current market for shovel-ready sites. So previous listings, I think, had them right around $3 a square foot. So we actually had these are in better alignment with where the market is right now. The length of the agreement right now, the current agreement that is before you does expire on April 7th of 2022. I did talk to Dan Peterson, and we renewed the Headwaters, did an amendment for renewal for the Headwaters listing agreement in December. And I asked him about the possibility of bringing this one back in December as well for an amendment, so we could sync those two up, so that they would expire on the same date. And he's going to work on an amendment near the end of the year, so we can sync up the expiration of the Headwaters 123 and these two parcels here. And I appreciate Karen sharing the two parcels. They are now on the screen, so I appreciate the save there. Just in full disclosure, these are probably two of the more challenging parcels within the airport business park to sell. They do have some wetlands on them and some ponding in there, so they are a little bit more challenging sites. But in talking to Dan Peterson and his team, he is confident that there is a market for it. So they are, excited to list these two parcels for the city. At this point, staff is recommending approval of the CBRE listing agreement for the two remaining parcels in the airport business park. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the listing agreement.
Thank you, Dan and Karen, for the screen share. Council, questions that you may have related to the listing agreement? Or a motion to approve the listing agreement if you're so inclined.
I just have a question for Dan, Mayor Bain. Are we, how are things going with CBRE, with our other property? I just out of curiosity, and then I often have to kind of revert back to kind of shop local, and why aren't we looking for individuals at the local level to list these on our behalf? I understand the idea that it makes some sense to have them listed all together, with this organization. But can you kind of help me with that a little bit? Why
Sure.
the decision to go this route?
CBRE, in my opinion, has been doing a great job for us on the Headwaters parcel. They have a pretty good exposure nationally. So if you're looking to bring in like a data center, a national vendor, they are in that market share. They also have a very strong regional presence as well. I mean, they have a big office in Minneapolis. One of the reasons to put this parcel, listed with CBRE is they do have a little bit bigger market presence, I believe, especially when you're looking for a commercial vendor to come in, having that that bigger reach, sort of having those contacts, both, within the metro area, regionally, and also nationally, does help to make sure that you're in front of the right selectors when they are looking for parcels. So that's one of the main reasons to put this with CBRE. And obviously we're not listing it for, multiple years at this point. It is a year-by-year listing. So if we do see down the road that we want to switch that listing down the road, we do have that option. We're not locking into, a 5-year listing agreement here. We're looking at it just through April, and they will come back with a, sort of a market strategy once they get the listing. We'll let them develop that marketing strategy and then, review that strategy. They do provide updates to the EDA relatively regularly. So we kind of know how that listing is going for the Headwaters parcel. And I expect them to do the same thing for this airport business park listing as well.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Byström and Dan. Any other questions related to the listing agreement? Councilmember Husnick.
Yeah, Mara, I'd make a motion that we would approve the listing agreement with for the airport business park with CBRE as Dan described.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion from Councilmember Husnick and a second from Councilmember Munson. Any further questions or discussion on this? Hearing none. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Aye, and motion is approved. Moving on to our next agenda item this evening is item 7D, which is the water meter shutoff for non-compliance. Dave.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've been here a couple times asking for the same a blessing. As you know, we had that water meter project in 2020 of last year, or last year in 2020. Successfully changed out almost 4,000 meters, and we're down to that list attached about 22 meters left that are either census meters or they are the old school Neptune meters that just need the register head replaced. As part of the project, the vendor sent every one of these properties floor mailers. That project concluded in October with 90% completed. So we kind of inherited these last ones. Through the winter, we weren't gonna pressure homeowners, as we don't want to threaten to shut people's water off in the middle of winter. That's just something you don't do. So in March and April, we started up again, putting door hangers, making phone calls, trying to reach out. At the beginning of March, we had about 50, so we narrowed down about, cut it in half of what we have left. And the ones on this list today are the ones that we just are not getting any response from. Typically, like in the past, when we paint up the front yard and hang that last mailer that says your water is going to be shut off tomorrow morning, they usually comply and we get the meter in and get it changed. I think since I've been doing this, we've shut off 3 people's water, and those 3 people's are still off their vacant houses that we just couldn't even get into. So just tonight, I'm just asking approval to go ahead and shut these houses off of water for non-compliance.
Thank you, Dave. Council, questions for Dave this evening? Dave, traditionally when we are shutting water off, it's for non-payment of the utility bill. Is that correct? Like that's a kind of an annual process that seems like once a year we get the list of water shutoffs. And this circumstance is because of the water meter change out. I'm wondering if it is worth longer than a 24-hour period just to allow for more education, more conversation. I'm not suggesting 3 weeks, but I'm wondering if 3 days might be more appropriate time. Just wondering your feedback on that, given that it's not the usual reason why we're shutting off water, unless I'm incorrect. And just wanting to know your reaction on just a little bit of a longer time frame. 24 hours, somebody happens to be out of town or whatever. It's just a tight turnaround.
Typically, when I come to you, it is because of the meter of non-compliance. It is against city ordinance that Public Works or the city has access to the water meter inside the house at all times. So I know there's non-compliance with not paying bills, and usually we don't shut water off. That just gets tacked on, certified, and put on property taxes. So when I'm coming for approval, it's because we can't get to the meter, and a lot of these are census that haven't read for 5, 6, 7 years. So I mean that they've been paying estimated water usage for years, and sometimes that's why they don't want us to come and look at the meter either, because we don't know what they're using, we're just guessing. So, but it is a city ordinance that we have to have access to that meter because it's city property what's inside the house. So there is some delinquent accounts on there, and when we do shut water off, as per ordinance, once we do shut water off, we do not turn it back on until they pay their water bill. That's another reason why we catch some of the homeowners and they want us to do it quick so they don't get their water shut off and have to pay the bill. So it's, like I said, I've come to you 3-4 times with about 20 a piece each time, and we've only had to shut 3 off. We've never got to the point where we haven't figured something out, or so.
Thank you. That's help. The context is helpful.
Dave,
Council
oops, I'm
questions?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Have you made contact? I noted that you've made 3 attempts already, phone calls and letters and door hangers. Have you made contact with any of these residents? Direct contact?
We've made some contact with a few. And we'll probably have to have FLPD assist us to come to a couple of these houses.
Okay.
Very standoffish on a few. Some ownership has changed, and that's why with the vendor, they were sending it to most likely the wrong address. We ran into some of them, but those are the ones that we took care of this March, April by doing the door hangers.
Okay.
These 22 have been non-responses since June of last year. I mean, it's been almost a complete year with, I think personally, with the vendor trying 4 times plus us with multiple door hangers and personal phone calls where the vendor didn't even try calling. They just did a postcard in the mail. So I really feel we've done our due diligence of trying to get a hold of these folks and doing it the less painful way. So.
Understood.
All right. It's just
Councilmember
too bad-
Husnick.
Yeah, it's just too bad we have to resort to that sort of thing. But, this has been going on for a year. 4 notices, some certified mail. I think once, wasn't it, David, and banging on doors and whatever it takes. And boy, I hate to resort to that, but I don't know what else we could possibly do in this case. I think our hands are kind of tied in this thing. And, as far as somebody being out of town, well, they don't need the water then anyways, at that time they could, get together with city staff and get that thing worked out. So Dave, what happens if they come back and they say, well, I'll be home tomorrow. Do you guys immediately go back over there, then change the meter right away and get the thing resolved, or is there a delay there or not?
So we won't do all of them all at once. So we'll pick maybe 7, 8 of them, this week on a Wednesday morning. We'll go out and do it right away at 7, 8 in the morning and paint up their curb stop and put the door hanger on. So it gives them that full day to see it before they go to work and then when they come home from work, and the blue flag and the paint in the yard,
Okay.
So, it's usually we get phone calls that same day of people calling in the afternoon. So with myself and staff, the numbers to call, they know they have, options to call all day long to get a hold of it. So,
Mhm.
we try to make it as painless as possible. And even when we do shut off, it's the same thing. It's we'll turn it back on that same day if they just let us in and do it. And it's not, our door hanger even says it's not that you have to have it done that day. You just need to call and set up an appointment. So
okay.
you don't have to let us in 2 days to come and do that. You just have to call City Hall or myself to set up an appointment. So we just need you on the books to do it, whether it's that same day or a week and a half from now. We need something on the book saying yes, we can get in there and change it out.
Just the fact that there's some kind of conversation, it makes me feel a little bit better about it. But I don't know what else we're going to do. I'd sure like to hear some other suggestions if they're out there.
And we have to enter the home to do this, Dave?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. I'm wondering about, in some cases, if there's been hesitancy because of COVID, this past year. Or if it's just pure resistance, I don't know the answer to that, but I like to try to give our residents every possible benefit of the doubt, so, but I can see that you've definitely done your due diligence here.
This is a really cleaned up spreadsheet, but if you saw the one that we have, it's color coded and notes like this is a COVID house, call back in the spring. This is a homeowner with this. I gave you the clean version, but we tracked what day and times we made phone calls, what day we put door hangers on, the day it's set, the vendors put the time on. I mean,
Yeah.
and to your point, the COVID one, there was a group of 10 or 15 that we just, we called back this spring and said, hey, are you comfortable with us coming in? And all those folks let us back in. They were feeling comfortable. So this isn't, none of these people on this list have anything to do with the COVID thing. That we would extend that for sure. We completely understand that, but these on the list have nothing next to their name of an excuse why or a reason why, we haven't been able to get in there.
Okay.
Believe me, I don't want to shut off somebody's water that shouldn't be getting shut off either. It's we go through the list and go through the list and go through the list and then go through it one more time. So
Yeah, the sad part is not having the communication. That's the thing I worry about, and that's really too bad. But
Meaning the communication on the part of the resident as to what their
Yeah.
resistance is. It's just it's hard to be planful or to help on when there's just no response.
so you're looking for a motion then to continue on with, as you're doing there, I assume, Dave?
yeah, I'm just looking for approval to turn the water off to the list provided for non-compliance.
I will hesitantly make a motion that we approve the water meter shut off for non-compliance in the respect that Dave has done his due diligence, and there's more due diligence coming. And we're just looking for communication and set up a time when this can get resolved.
I'll second it.
There's a motion from Councilmember Husnick and a second from Councilmember Byström. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. Karen, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Aye. Motion is approved. Quick timing check in with Donovan on our next council item. Are we looking to push that back a little bit further into the agenda?
Yes, we are, please.
All right, so we will suspend the regular agenda and move on to our discussion only portion. And with that, the next item is athletic discussion item 8A, which is athletic field fees and senior center room rental fees, and the associated fee schedule amendment. And we have Jamie presenting for us. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council, for discussion tonight and before you in your agenda are in the agenda packet. I have outlined some proposed additional fees for the 2021 fee schedule for the athletic field rentals and our Forest Lake Senior Community Center. So as you're aware, we've undergone some changes with our operations regarding our facilities. And so with that, we do need to add some fees to our fee schedule for this year. The first one I'll talk about is the athletic field rentals. This is something we've talked about quite a bit and quite extensively. We were working with the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association to determine what our fees for renting and reserving our athletic fields would look like. Through that process, we did end up working with the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association on a 1-year agreement. And in that, we did include season permits for the use of Fenway Fields. So tonight before you, you have the additional fees that we would charge at our athletic fields, and it's broken down for Fenway Fields and then our other city fields. So Belts Park, Schilling Park, and Cooling Camp. We do have a resident, non-resident, and a nonprofit youth organization rate. These fees, we also add the tournament fees, again, for nonprofit youth organizations and any other tournaments that would come forward. These fees were discussed with the Forest Lake Area Athletic Association as it relates to youth organizations. And the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission did approve this at their last meeting last Tuesday. And then secondly, the Forest Lake Senior Community Center, now that is operating under the city, city staff did meet and evaluated the fees that were being charged for room rentals at the Forest Lake Senior Community Center. So before you, we've put together the recommendation of the fees that we would just add into our fee schedule that are in alignment with what was being charged in the past. So you see a room rental for the multi-purpose room, which would be $30 per hour with the 5-hour minimum. And then any other, the smaller little rooms they have available would just be $30 per hour. And then also they do have a membership fee, which would be, it was previously $18, but the senior board did want to move that to $20 for a full year. So we'd prorate that at $10 for a half a year. So with that being said, this is discussion tonight. So just an opportunity for council if there's any other final questions. Otherwise, this would come back to the June 14th for final approval. with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Mayor Bain, I have a just quick question. I wasn't sure, Jamie, if you said that the resident $25 fee for, I believe it's Fenway, that
Correct.
has been, is that the FLA rate? Theirs is different.
FLA's rate is already included in the permit amount, so they would not have that fee.
Okay, okay, that's why I was confused for a second.
Right,
was-
so if a resident wanted
lots
to
of-
reserve it for a family get together or some other use
Got it.
fields, that would be the $25 per hour.
That's what I thought, but there's a lot of back and forth and just wanted to just
Yes,
make sure. Thank
Clarify.
you.
you're welcome.
Councilmember Byström.
A couple of things, Jamie. Can you clarify the school issue here too? I know that was part of the discussion at the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission meeting. Maybe I'll let you do that first, and then I have a follow.
Sure. So the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission asked if schools would have a fee, and we would not have a fee listed here or a fee for the schools. And so that is not reflected in the fee schedule. So it would be just other youth organizations or youth sports groups that wanted to come in, but we would not charge the schools.
I'm wondering if that does need to be reflected here, though, in some way, shape, or form, because it's not clear looking at the document that that's the case. I think the second piece for me here is I'm still really struggling with the resident fee. When I've done, a little bit of homework on my own of some other kind of comparable communities, we seem to be considerably higher. A lot of them are just a flat rate for a period of time. City of Anoka, for example, for many of their fields or courts or those sorts of things. And I know we're not including those. They had no charge, but their resident fee, for example, for softball and baseball was $4. And I know at one point we had $3.75 on this list.
Yeah.
So I'm just not, I don't have a whole lot of context here. Why are we kind of all over the place with the fees, and how did we land here?
Yeah, so the resident, so when you look at the other fields, so before we had Fenway Fields listed here, we've had the $15 per hour per field as our field rental fee for quite a few years. So we were charging $15 per hour per field previously. This is the first year we did a resident and non-resident rate. So that's where we took the $15 an hour per field that we were previously charging, and the Parks, Trails and Lakes Commission wanted a different rate for residents and non-residents. What you see of the $3.75 an hour, we did talk about that with FLA for youth organizations. So FLA did recommend a $3 per hour per field for using some of our other fields like at Cooling Camp. So that's where FLA came back with that, and that's, I think, comparable to what you might have referred to in Anoka, where they had the $4 per hour. So the $3 per hour per field was where we were at the $3.75 per hour, but we dropped that down to $3 an hour to kind of have that compromise of what's a very nominal, but a fee to charge for the use of the fields to those organizations.
Yeah, the city of Anoka is a straight $4. I know, soccer and ball fields in Wyoming, $10 a field for up to 2 hours, $5 for each additional hour per field. So I feels to me like we're a little high, and I'm just, if that's where we've been and people have been receptive to it, I don't know. I am struggling with that one a little bit when we have taxpayers paying for them. So it feels like it's a double dip a little bit,
Councilmember Byström.
Maintenance.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Councilmember Byström, is the concern over Fenway in particular, or the all other fields? Is it both?
Well, yeah, I think so. Fenway's a little bit of a different animal, I think, because there's just so much additional maintenance that needs to occur there. So I feel a little less passionately about that one than I do kind of the all other fields. I just, And
I guess I can make a quick comment too, just that as we transition to having more of the field facilities, all of our fields are available first come, first serve. So if you're not paying the fee, they've been being used quite frequently and organically in the community, that they are available. This would just be, I think, kind of those special situations if you know you wanted to make sure that you had the field reserved, and that as we're bringing field scheduling into the city, it's just kind of that stepping stone to have the fee, that if somebody wanted to make sure that they had it for a graduation party, for example, so they could play the pickup game with their family and it's a scheduled activity, then that's when this fee would come into place. But if people wanted just to show up and use the fields, you know, they are available first come, first serve if they're not reserved and scheduled. So we haven't seen a lot of paid reservations, but it's just, you know, to have in the fee that if someone should want to reserve it, that's, you know, the fee that we'd have in place for that. So it's, you know, I think we are taking kind of some steps to a more formalized policy in the future of the field reservations and bringing the field scheduling in-house under the city. Just this year, you know, it's kind of this is a stepping stone. And because we do have Fenway Fields now under the city for scheduling, previously that was under FLA, we do need to have a fee structure in place for that. So, and as I mentioned, we did have, just if you looked back to previous years of our fees, we did have a field rental of $15 per hour per field.
Bain?
Councilmember Munson.
I agree with Councilmember Byström, but I think I'm looking at it a little bit differently now that you've clarified that point. In other words, the fee, if you're going to have a birthday party, let's just say, the fee is you're guaranteed that field. Otherwise,
Correct.
sort of like renting the pavilion down at the park, even though I know that's not a field, but still park. So then you're guaranteed, and you can say to someone, hey, I reserved this, I have such and such permit. Okay, so that makes sense to me. I mean, if you're going to, then you're guaranteed, then otherwise it would be a logistical nightmare. I don't know how you would do it. I don't know.
And that's similar, and I'm glad you brought up the other facilities. So at Lakeside Memorial Park and a couple of our other parks, when we do rent out our facilities, it's the same model that, you know, we have people that have the birthday parties or graduation parties, and they want to make sure that they have it reserved for 3 or 4 hours. They're willing to pay a small resident or non-resident fee to guarantee they have that space, and we post notification that they've got it reserved. I do have people that call, and, you know, I do let them know that, you know, it's a Sunday at 10 in the morning, you know, I don't think there's going to be a strong demand for reserving it, that they are available first come, first serve, because we don't want to be charging them to just charge them. But, you know, there are certain times, especially in the summer, when there's the high demand, just to make sure that you have that space, then that would be the fee we would charge. And again, I think it'll take yet this year. This can obviously be reevaluated for yet later for our 2022 fee schedule, but I think this is a good stepping stone as we move forward in taking some of that field rentals and reservations under the city this year. We can reevaluate it once we get through the next few months of summer and make some adjustments and reconsiderations for 2022.
I wanted assurance that the neighborhood kids who wanted to walk across the street to an open field and have a pickup baseball game, you know, didn't have to reserve it and pay $15 an hour, you know.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So
I think we're going to continue to see a lot of that just first come, first serve use. This is just the fee we would have to charge if somebody wanted to say, we want to make sure we have Belts Park for a family gathering. We could then collect a fee and post notification that this is going to be reserved by a private party from 5 to 7 p.m. And then if the party shows up and somebody is playing, then we can just kindly inform them that this is a paid reservation to utilize the fields at this time. So.
Okay. Jamie, where are those postings at? I mean, how would you know when you walk onto the field that it's been reserved?
That's a great question. Again, this is a fairly new process for the city, as this is our first year taking on more of that field scheduling. But simple ways we can post them at the Lakeside Memorial Park. We have memo boards. So we post a sign in there that says we have the gazebos reserved or a picnic shelters reserved. So I would do that same model, either put a memo board there or post on the fencing that this is a reserved party. I also communicate to anybody reserving a facility, just they have a copy of a confirmation that this is a paid reservation. So they have proof of that as well. So they could inform others if needed.
All right, and one other question, how much in advance should they be reserving a spot? I mean,
For fields, I have one request in for a graduation party. They've notified me, about a month in advance, and we cross-checked with other schedules we've already received to make sure the date was available. So I would say with our picnic shelters, we say about 7 days prior notice, but any 7 days or more, but I'm happy to be flexible and work with people as needed.
yeah, my concern was somebody running up and say, hey, I want to reserve it for this afternoon. And somebody's already there playing on it, So, no, that sounds like a good plan, at least some buffer there. So,
Yeah, I think we're, as staff, happy to make any reasonable accommodations, with any requests that come in. We've received a couple already, and if we're able to accommodate it, we're happy to do so.
I will say that, considering that it's what you're paying for is actually the right to have the exclusive use and that reservation. I think that for the amount of infrastructure and facilities that are at Fenway and the more what we could classify in the fee schedule as the athletic field rentals, I think that structure makes sense. If our $15 an hour is a little high, our intent, this isn't a huge budget revenue item for us. And if that needs to pop down just a bit to be more in line with other communities, I don't have a challenge with that. And I don't think it's necessarily $4 an hour, but if 15 is a little on the strong side, I am open to bringing the all other fields, to something that's palatable. So I don't think we need to be on the high end. And so I do have some appetite to bump that down. If that's 10 or 12 or whatever that looks like. I don't know what that magic number is, but if the gut reaction is, ooh, that's a little steep, I want to, $30 for Belts Park for a field for a, couple of hours. I don't have my heart set on it. It has to be 15 an hour. I do think non-residents, I think $25 an hour is fair, but for that resident rate, I would have an appetite to bring that down, just hearing the conversation, just throwing that out there. Any other feedback for Jamie at this point? All right.
I know there's a lot of moving parts this year, Jamie, and we want to do the right thing by our residents. That's all, and so I know there's a lot to sort through, but I tend to agree with Mayor Bain that let's maybe drop it a little and then see how things go.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. So I made a note on that, and we'll revisit the other fields, the resident fee and reduction for that to bring forward.
Okay.
We kind of did a deep dive onto that particular line item of the fee schedule. I know that there were a couple of other points of reference for us, senior center being one of them. Any other questions or points of conversation we should be considering tonight?
I guess I would ask the resident, non-resident question about the rental at the senior center as well. Is there a reason why we didn't land on a resident, non-resident fee schedule there?
At this point, staff, we reviewed what has been being charged, and just to keep consistent with that for this year to evaluate, we didn't clarify. There's still a lot of things we're learning as we transition the senior center operations. They were charging just $150 for the multipurpose room, and it was a minimum of 5 hours. So we just thought that this is a good starting point until we can really understand more of the different groups and users of the facility. At this time, we don't have that detailed information of who's renting it, when, and how. We have a very high level basis of that, and we'll continue to sift through that. I think it would be something to definitely look at and consider as we look at the 2022 fee schedule.
Okay. I know it's a baseline year.
It is a baseline year for this. There's a lot to learn yet with that facility.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, kudos to everybody who's gotten us to this point. I know with the conversations with FLA and Parks, Trails and Lakes, this has been a while in the works. So I'm thrilled we're at this point. So
Thank you.
council, anything further this evening, or Jamie, anything further you'd like council to consider on this topic?
I think I have the feedback that I need. If there's any other questions, just let me know.
All right, that sounds good. And we'll come back to council on future topic. With that, we will move on to our next discussion item this evening, which is draft ordinance 703, which is a related conversation to fee schedule amendment. And I think there's a couple of additional considerations. I apologize for the dog in the back. He is sick of me being on calls. I'm gonna put myself on mute and turn it over to Karen.
Thank you, Mayor Bain. Yeah, this is kind of a jump off of some of Jamie's items. Obvious biggest changes to this fee schedule, which is actually an ordinance and needs to be adopted, is the park and recreation fees. Discussed FLA. So it sounds like Jamie and I will have to probably have a conversation. And if this is coming back to council again for further discussion on or direction on if that's, reducing the fee and deciding, is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 5? What we're going to do there. So this is an ordinance change. It does require a 10-day notification. And so that's why I was bringing it to you now to account for the timelines. Sounds like we'll shift that back even further, which is fine. And then also to speak about the senior center, Jamie mentioned that the charge they were using for that multi-purpose room was $150 with a 5-hour minimum, which works out to be $30 an hour. That is the rate that we currently charge for use of the community room and other rooms for organizations in the city center as well. So it's in keeping with the same fees that we're already charging for use at the city center. Some additional changes have been just simple language. Administration and Finance Department, you can see on here, they added special to the assessment search just to indicate that it's not a regular fee, it's a special fee that people are assessed. Fire Department had apparently for several years, and I guess I missed it, it was $4,150 for a storage tank, and it's supposed to be $150. So that got missed for multiple years apparently. And Al caught it and brought that to my attention. So that change is being asked. There is a driveway access permit fee that is being added in the zoning department, which I think we've had that. I just don't think it's actually been officially on the fee schedule. And then finally, Public Works Department is making a couple changes and also adding separate fees for the size of hydrant meter deposits. So 3/4 inch is $300, a 2.5 inch, $2,500. I guess this is I might have to check that to make sure that that's correct. But those are changes and additions in the Public Works Department as well. So those are the more significant changes that we're seeing. Again, this is an ordinance, so it does need to be adopted by council. I will get with Jamie, but just based on what you see here, is there anything that council has concerns about or would like to see different other than the park fees that are indicated here?
Thank you, Karen. And council, what feedback or questions might we have related to the fee schedule? My only question would be related to timing. Maybe also a good opportunity, council, for us to clarify our instructions or expectations related to this resident on the recreational fields. I didn't hear that council was expecting that to come back in a workshop format, that could just, staff can kind of take our feedback and propose an adjusted fee and bring it back for us for approval. And then if that is indeed the case, does that mean that you'd have to delay the timing of bringing the ordinance forward?
No, because it would come to the June 14th meeting.
Okay, and there is still time to do, obviously, the 10-day posting for that.
Yes.
Council, as you heard that sequence of events, do you have any concern over this planned sequence, or do you want us to delay? Do you want Karen to delay posting the ordinance change?
I don't have a problem with it, Mara. No.
Yeah, I don't either. I think we can get this resolved by that June 14th meeting.
I agree.
Okay. Sounds good.
I
So
would
I'll
be
just talk,
comfortable. Yeah.
I'll talk with Jamie, and then what I will do is make whatever her recommended changes are to the section on Parks and Recreation Department, and then an ordinance notice will be posted for that, and then that'll come back to the June 14th council meeting for your decision.
Terrific. Karen, any other feedback you need from council at this time?
I don't think so.
All right, council, just before we move off of this topic, any other points of input? Seeing none, I'm going to do a quick check-in with Donovan. Donovan, I assume we are going to move on to staff updates. Is that the preferred path?
Mayor, yes.
Okay. We will continue to put on suspense. Karen, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment. I had received an email from Ryan, and he had noted in there that maybe around 8:30 is when he would be able to join the meeting if we're still in session at that point.
Understood.
So another half hour.
We will not be able to suspend, but we can continue making progress in other parts of the agenda. So, all right. Thank you for that, Karen. We'll move on to staff updates. We'll start with Patrick and then move on to Dan.
Mayor and members of council, I have no update today, but if you have questions or issues you'd like to discuss, please let me know.
Anything for Patrick this evening?
Sounds like you might need to make some things up so we can kill some time.
All right, Dan, and after Dan, we'll go to Chief Peterson.
Mayor, members of council, as you may notice from my
Dan, we're not hearing you. By the way, Dan is testing out the new equipment in the, this is the new hybrid equipment that's available in council chambers.
Can you hear me now?
Not
Barely,
really.
just barely.
There you go. Better. Well, no, that was Sam, not you.
Oh.
I was just gonna say everything was working and all of a sudden it stopped working.
You're really far away. It's like it's picking your computer mic up instead of the mic in front of you. We will come back to Dan, Chief Peterson, and then Chief Newman.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any updates for you either. But Dan, just to let you know that I was bumped out of this meeting 3 or 4 times. So I don't know if there's something going on with the servers, but maybe it's something totally different.
Could be. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sort of, yeah. We'll go on to Chief Newman and then Pete and Amanda.
Mayor, members of the council, I do have an update. We are coming up on 1 year since mHealth took over from North Ambulance. And every month, Greg Weiss, Captain Weiss, and I meet with Kevin Kane, who is the regional manager for the Forest Lake area, which includes Hugo, Scandia, Wyoming, Linwood, Forest Lake, and Columbus. And their average emergent response time for April was 5 minutes and 19 seconds for Forest Lake, and that includes the areas around the lake as well. To give you an idea of how good of a response time that is, the national response target is 8 minutes and 59 seconds. And the response target for Hennepin County in the city of Minneapolis is 90% of their calls at 10 minutes and 59 seconds or less. So 5 minutes and 19 seconds is pretty good response time. So they'll actually hit the first year the 26th of June. And then if the council would like, we could invite them in to give their year recap for their service in Forest Lake. And they do that with other councils as well.
Chief, I would welcome that opportunity to hear from them. And then a question would be, what was that response rate with our previous provider? What were we seeing? And maybe you mentioned that I missed it.
We never received response times in the past.
Oh.
And so when mHealth came in, one of their promises to all the municipalities that they serve is that they would provide a monthly update and a monthly meeting with that municipality. And we've met every month, and they have just continued to improve in their response time as their paramedics learn the area and all the intricacies of our road system and getting around the lake. And you can see each month they just gradually improve.
That's fantastic. And would love to tell them that in person and just hear from them. So whenever is a good time, we'd welcome that time on the agenda.
Okay. That's
Council,
all I
any
have.
any follow-up questions for Chief Newman? All right, we will check in with Dan again. Dan, any update?
Is it working now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was gonna let everybody know I've been testing the system here, and apparently I was messing with the volumes and shut the volume off of the microphone as well. But 2 meetings so far in the blended sessions, and have been able to hear everything in here with no feedback. So it appears everything is working here. I did meet with Paul Peterson this afternoon to talk about getting microphones off the dais and into the some staff tables in front, because with social distancing, we have to displace staff a little bit further out into the audience. So have a little bit of microphone moving that we need to do before we can get all the staff mic'd. But overall, the system is performing as designed. So the blended setup is working extremely well. I also have an update that the downtown sculpture has been installed. It was installed, I believe, last week. So if you haven't yet, be sure to swing downtown and take a look at the new sculpture that is in the roundabout next to Lakeside Memorial Park. And I'm also working with NewTrax to get that service resumed. Right now, it's tentative for June 16th, but we need to make sure that we get the agreement back before EDA prior to. So he's right now penciling it in for a June 16th start, but can flex that a little bit and delay that if need be. So excited to get that service back up and running as well, especially since now that the senior center is reopened, that bus does serve the senior center on Wednesdays. So looking to resume at this point, possibly on the 16th of June. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, Dan. Council, any questions for Dan? All right, let's move on to Dave. I didn't give you a heads up, Dave, but if we could go with Dave next, and then Jamie, and then Ryan. Dave, any updates for council this evening?
No updates tonight, unless you have anything for me.
Any questions for Dave? Hearing none. Jamie.
Yes, just the only update, as you're aware, with the contract approval tonight for the entertainment in the park. We are going to go back to the full Tuesdays starting June 15th. So it's we're gearing up. We'll release the concert series this week. So you will see some concert agreements coming through quickly here in the June 14th meeting. And we're looking forward to having everybody back down at the park this year. And that is it, unless you have any other questions for me.
Any questions for Jamie? Thank you, Jamie. Looking forward to Arts in the Park again. All right, let's go on to Sandy. And we do have Sandy tonight. Sandy, any updates for council? And we'll go to Karen and then follow up with Ryan if Ryan has anything.
I have nothing to add unless there's any questions for me.
Anything for Sandy? All right, Karen.
Thank you, Mayor Bain. I have a small update. I received an email from Washington County about redistricting. So I'm not sure what that conversation is going to entail. So far, all I have is just a meeting time scheduled for Thursday, June, is it maybe June 9th or 10th? I have to look at the schedule, but I lost everybody. I don't know if you can still hear me. I've lost
We
everybody.
hear you. Yep, we hear
Okay.
you.
My screen has gone completely gone. So, so I'm not really sure what that meeting is going to be about. Redistricting discussion. I don't know if they're planning on moving borders or what will be happening, but I will be updating council as soon as I learn more information about that after the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
That's my update.
Let's circle back to Ryan, and then I believe we've caught everybody. I believe that will be the end of staff updates. And then I know we have Mr. Bender and Mr. Johnson on. We are going to move to your agenda item right after staff updates. So Ryan, any updates for council this evening?
Mayor, City Council, nothing specific other than a lot of construction projects are active. So if you got questions, just feel free to reach out anytime through the week.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions specifically for Ryan this evening? All right. With that, let's circle back to our regular agenda and let's circle back up to item 7E, which is resolution 05242105, the Forest Hills Preserve. And Donovan, we'll let you start.
Thank you. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to present the final PUD, Plan Unit Development, and final plat applications for Forest Hills Preserve, which council is somewhat familiar with as Forest Hills Farm Second Edition. It received preliminary PUD, preliminary plat approval early this year for that. In response to some resident concerns, the owner, Jaron Johnson, has changed the name, and so it is Forest Hills Preserve as the plat name. What we have before you tonight is the plan that shows, which is very similar to what was approved by the city. I'm sorry, I need to share a little differently here. And then I want to give you the location here on intersection of North Shore Trail and Highway 97 or Scandia Trail. Just to the west there being Forest Hills Farms First Edition. And so what has been proposed is significantly similar to what the preliminary plan was. With some small changes related to landscaping and the design for the public infrastructure has been finalized. I'd like to share, also the overview here. There are three outlots, with one being located kind of at the end of this cul-de-sac adjacent to North Shore Trail. And this actually is the location of outlot C, which is also where a sanitary lift station is being designed and located. This allows for these lots on what's identified as Kenneth Court on the cul-de-sac road, about, I think it's eight lots to be served by the sanitary sewer, which pumps it back uphill. And these lots are served by public sewer and private well. The staff, the engineer review letter you received in your packets has been updated. There's a fourth review letter in which the project engineer, John Bender, who's also on the call with us tonight, has addressed more of the concerns, and Ryan can provide more detail for that. if needed, as far as, what outstanding, conditions there are. And we did receive another landscape plan that does address the city engineer's concerns. But the outstanding pieces aren't, in my view, significant at this point. What is, I believe, significant at this point is that in their final PUD review, the Planning Commission did not have a motion to approve that passed. By a vote of 3-2, there was some concerns from the Planning Commission members regarding this application. And this did receive a majority for preliminary PUD recommendation of approval from council. But when it came down to, again, looking at some of the details, the Planning Commission, 3 members voted no. So let me jump into my staff memo where I outline some of those concerns, and also, as we discuss this for council members, also to direct, any concerns you have for these, to the staff members who focus on these. In Plan Commission review, they see me, Plan Commission members know I represent, all the staff members. And I try to do that accurately, but I'm sure I don't do it with the same kind of nuance or years of experience that other staff members have, particularly with Public Works, city engineer, and the fire chief, Al Newman. So with that, I'd like to also share my screen to kind of dig into a little bit of those concerns, show the text. So one of the concerns was inadequate room for snow storage, especially on 20-foot wide loop road, which is on the western side of the development, where there are multiple driveways intersecting with road, especially later in the winter season. Public Works responds that, there are places where there are pretty similar width of road, as well as actually a tighter configuration of driveways, and they've not experienced difficulties with these. Also, I think it should be noted that in this case, in some ways, that western development does show a loop similar to this, though of course this, it's much larger, but with no driveways in the middle, snow can be plowed to that center. So leaving these outer edges free from the need for snow storage. Also, this is a narrow road, then having a narrow road means there's less snow to move as well. And so here's another example on Everton Trail.
Hey, Donovan, it's also no parking as well. I think we need to remind them of that as well.
Thank you, Jaron. Yes. So also as a staff condition of approval for this, it is a one-way road, 20-foot wide, with parking prohibited. And within the engineering standards, there are 20-foot wide curb-to-curb roads, which are, include when there's lanes, 20-foot wide lane for streets with medians, as well as a 20-foot wide fire access lane. So that's not considered something that's really a big deviation from common practice. Also expressed as a concern from Plan Commission members is the safety of the entrance road on the North Shore Trail, given its proximity to Highway 97. And right now the two plans do show a bypass lane for the northbound through traffic on North Shore to allow for those safer left-hand turns. And this bypass lane is designed to meet state aid standards. This is for a road that is posted at 35 miles an hour.
Can you share that, Donovan?
That's according to Ryan's city engineer, yes.
No, can you share that on the screen so they see what we're saying bypass lane? Or Ryan, could you share that?
Yeah, he will.
Okay.
Yeah, Jaron, why don't you let me run through this?
Okay.
And
Sure.
the next you'll have time to speak as well. But I would like to jump back to the just the overall picture, and as you can see, approximately is about a 500-foot distance between this proposed driveway area and Scandia Trail. So you can see, there is, for vehicles turning here, there's clear visibility, but also making this turn, they're probably not going, anything maybe at max at that 35 posted speed if they really want to do the turn, but they'll have clear visibility to go around vehicles, as well as no decel lane is proposed for the southbound traffic. And again, this is consistent with state aid standards. The also related, another concern is that there's not, lots aren't wide enough to allow for adequate room for drilling the wells, the private wells on each property. And the project engineer, John Bender, did provide some more information for that. And perhaps, John, you can expound on that to explain where, these lots and setbacks required do meet state health department standards. Also note that this situation where we have public sewer and private wells is almost entirely the similar situation, similar with public utilities versus private all around the lake. And many of those lots are 50 feet wide, and I'm not aware of any variances required for any sort of new wells that are being drilled in places. And assuming those wells do meet, the required setbacks that are existing there. There's also a sentiment expressed that there are too many lots within development. This is a 35 proposed lots for Forest Hills Preserve, I'm sorry. The original Forest Hills Farm did pre-plat this at 28 lots. And so there's a 7 lot difference from that one that council did preliminary approve around 2009, I believe. And in 2014, the previous owner of this parcel did produce this 35 lot concept, and it marketed the property with that. And it still took 10 years to sell. So it's really not the city's responsibility to make sure the economics work out. But I believe that that's a big factor here on why this property has not received a proposal for council consideration, is that the 28 lots just didn't work. They didn't pencil out, as you might say, as a developer. But we do have 35 lots here, and this does doesn't exceed the actual density minimum for the planned land use, within our 2040 comp plan. So that's a summary of what I saw from, what I heard from the Plan Commission and staff response. And and because council has reviewed this before, I'll just conclude here and welcome questions. But the staff recommendation is for approval of resolution 05-24-2105 on page 125 of your packet. And that's, resolution approving the final plat and final PUD for Forest Hills Preserve. With that, I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Mayor Bain, go ahead.
I'm on mute. Councilmember Munson, hold on just a moment. And Donovan, just to clarify process, the Planning Commission's role for these is to recommend, this isn't an appeal of a Planning Commission denial. The standard process is for Planning Commission to vote to either recommend for approval, and then council then makes the final decision. Is that the case?
Correct. Yeah, with
Okay.
both if with the final PUD, that is the process. Just as the technicality, final plats are only approved by council. So
By council, okay.
their motion did not involve the plat. So this
Understood.
So this recommendation, the lack of a recommendation of approval is related to PUD.
Understood. I know there are times where we are in a formal appeal process, and this is not the case. It just comes to us without the planning commission recommendation to deny from their position. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Councilmember Munson, I think you had some questions.
I did, thank you. Donovan, I wasn't able to attend the last planning commission meeting, but attended the other one with the preliminary, but watched and heard the concerns about the snow removal. Does that I think the one-way road is a great idea. Does the no parking provide is that any sort of, I don't know, I'm just trying to think. Sorry, I knew I was gonna have barking dogs. Is that gonna be any challenge for, the homeowner? I'm just thinking, like, if you're, not that this happens every day, but you have a party, is there something you can do, I guess is my question, from the city? Can you get like a special, you're gonna have we'll say graduation party or something, or family reunion. Can you get a special permit for parking or anything like that?
Yeah, I would actually discourage that. Really, the 20-foot width is required for fire response for the large trucks, and if the outriggers need to be, the struts need to be placed. I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for Chief Newman here, but it's my understanding that they need a 20-foot wide, section of asphalt to really do their setup when they're using the pumper truck.
Okay, and this wasn't a deal breaker for me. I'm graduating senior, so that parking's on my mind. So
yeah, and of course, there are other this is, they might be situations where people need to walk, a few hundred feet, in large situations, and of course, that would be the time when it would be most urgent to get a fire vehicle with a house with a higher occupancy, I think. So that's why I would discourage any sort of leniency given that. And the fact is that it is, this is something that's part of the kind of built into the development that, and every homeowner will see the signs as they look at buy a prospective lot, so they'll understand.
Thank you. And like I said, it wasn't a deal breaker, but just curious.
Mayor, City Council, I'll just quickly add to that this one-way loop, it's very short distance that we're talking about. So to have a full width street just to the east of here, they'll be able to park along there. But oftentimes I see this in a lot of other communities too. They'll share driveway space with neighbors when they have the larger events and coordinate that appropriately. So that alleviates the issues on street. So just a couple of comments with that.
Donovan, I had a similar question related to parking. Can somebody pull up the map to show the street that we're talking about? That I just want to see the physical space that is going to be no parking versus where there is parking allowed. And while someone's pulling that up, I'll say, I appreciate the sensitivity around snow removal, but if Dave gives the thumbs up that he's comfortable with the snow removal plan, I'm comfortable with the snow removal plan. And so part 2 of my question is just going to be to Dave to confirm that, yes, he is indeed comfortable with the snow removal plan.
Yeah, just like Donovan had shown on those other pictures, there's at least 3 that I found. I sent them pictures of that are similar to this. This actually is a wider circle with more snow storage in the middle. So typically we'd have one of our egg tractors or a loader out there doing the cul-de-sac on what they would be calling Kenneth anyway. So the loader would go down there and go one swipe around in a circle and back out. So not to say that the houses on the outside aren't going to get any snow. They'll be rolled off with a blade, but majority of it will go to the center, and we don't have problems with that on other places similar to this. So I don't see that as any concern. Just the the no parking during the winter time, but that's obvious, no parking anywhere in the city in the winter. So if there was a car parked there when we were trying to plow, we couldn't get around. We just have to turn around and leave until, that car was moved. That would be the only concern, but we run into that in other spots too, where there's cars in the way and we can't get through. So.
Thank you, Dave. That helps. Donovan, you've pulled up the plat. Can you just walk through the section that is no parking versus, just for the development, I want to see where there's parking, where there's not.
Certainly. So I've given you a detail here of this loop road. It would be one way counterclockwise. To give you a sense of scale, each of these lots here are about 80 feet wide. These are a little wider. So if you kind of add those up, this is around 350, 400 feet from the furthest extent to this area, to the area where, outside the loop. This is back to the 32-foot, standard of road, curb to curb. And so basically it would be, no parking within this one-way loop area here. Okay.
And okay. And then parking is allowed on the straight section, the 211th Court North.
Correct.
Is it parking on one side of the street?
Parking is allowed on both sides.
On both sides, okay.
And then also it's also just parking on both sides on the other cul-de-sac road as well.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful. Council, what other questions might you have for Donovan? And then I'd like to give Mr. Johnson and Mr. Bender an opportunity for any additional items they'd like us to consider this evening. Council, anything further before we hear from the project team?
I'm curious about the lot width issue. And the kind of the rigidity there. Is there a kind of a standard around minimum lot width?
Well, one of the PUD's flexibility sought by the developer is to allow for a lot that's not the standard 100-foot width. So
Okay.
it's a 20-foot lot width reduction that's sought here. So that's 20%, not 1/5.
Yeah. So
Um,
Donovan, is that standard by Forest Lake standards or standard? Is there industry standard or a?
No, that's just within our zoning code. This is for within the single family zoning district where you have public sewer and private wells, private water.
Okay.
It's a 100-foot lot width as well as minimum, as well as a 25,000 square feet, approximately half acre lot area. And many of these lots are greater than that, the 25,000 square feet. Some are less, but there is, this was pretty similar to what was approved in around the 09 period with that preliminary plat, which did that approval did expire. So I'm referring to only as that was what was considered then. And it's not, if there's public water and sewer, we, this would be standard, 80-foot width is the standard. And we do have, 80-foot wide lots all over Chestnut Creek, for instance, and we haven't seen concerns there with snow storage and that. I mean, and that's, and also one of those concerns about the lot narrowness or the lot width that's proposed, is related to the well drilling, which, I expect the project team will address that one. But that's one that, in doing our review, and this is, where Ryan and his team have looked at these, they haven't expressed a concern with ability to get the well drilling machines in there to actually, do that work.
Okay.
Donovan, did you say they have expressed concerns or they have not?
Have not, yes.
Have not, okay, thank you. Council, other questions for Donovan? All right, we'll certainly have an opportunity to come back to them. I guess I'd like to just provide an opportunity for Mr. Johnson and Mr. Bender. Hearing the conversations, the questions so far, Mr. Johnson, I know you had some additional comments during Donovan's presentation. The floor is yours. Anything else you'd like council to consider at this point?
Sure. Well, hey, Donovan, I didn't mean to step on your toes there. So, well, I guess at this point, I want you to know that we're really trying hard to answer the concerns that the Planning Commission had. And I feel confident between talking with Donovan and Ryan and John. I also have Andy Zerker here. Andy's done my wells for 20 plus years. He knows the area very, very well. And I would like to get people confident on, get over those concerns, because going into that, I did the research and asked these questions before we even got to this point with Andy, making sure this wasn't going to be a concern at prelim or final plat. So I'd like to have Andy help with that. But the other few reasons for denial, I got to say, I'll speak for my team. We were all very, very surprised to hear what they had to say. They were mute point concerns, in my opinion, and we know we have to answer them. And I respect that we have to, but I'd like to have John and Ryan kind of help really pinpoint those concerns and alleviate those concerns, and then with Andy here to help the well concern idea. The 35 lots, that property would sit there for another 100 years if we can't do 35 lots. I mean, that's even a little tight. 80-foot wide lots are actually in a city, pretty large lots, and I guarantee as we go and hopefully you'll see me more and Len Pratt and the other guys doing more developing in Forest Lake, it's common to see 50, 60, 65 foot wide lots, and we're going to see that. We're not going to see very many 80 foot wide lots anymore, unless we're out in an acreage idea, which we aren't in the city of Forest Lake, or around there. So the 80 foot wide lots are actually a nice wide lot that I'm very happy with. We have plenty of room between the houses, and it's going to be rare to see 80 foot wide lots in the future. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for that perspective. I guess I would just ask if there's anything further you'd like to add at this point, either related to the project or wells, or do you just want to respond to council questions?
I guess I wouldn't mind if Andy, he's here with me right now, if he wouldn't mind just giving his, many years of education on.
I just whatever answers you need from me, I pretty much know all the state health department laws and setbacks and all this type of stuff, and there's really nothing here that I see that would hold back from having well and versus so even septic systems would be very tight on an 80-foot lot. That probably would never happen, but because we have sanitary sewer here, the setbacks would be very easy to meet. If there's any problem with thinking that neighbors are going to get lack of water from this project, we're going to be taking away their water. That's pretty much unforeseen. There's just no way that would happen.
Thank you for that. And I guess turn it back over to council for any specific questions you might have for the project team or for Donovan at this point.
I guess, Mayor Bain, my only, I think I have my questions answered. The only other thing I guess I'd like to hear is this this entrance and exit. Maybe Chief Peterson to kind of weigh in on that placement wise with the turn lane. Any concerns? Dave doesn't have any for plowing. I'm curious from a public safety perspective if he has any concerns on the roadway there.
If I could add on, add on to that question. I'm also I think it'd be good for council to just hear from Ryan the recent 97 updates that have been done at North Shore Trail. And so maybe start with Chief Peterson from his perspective and then hear from Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no issues from a police standpoint, but definitely a fire standpoint, there might be something. Our vehicles could make that turn, and I don't see any issues there. But that might be a question for Fire Chief Newman.
Chief Newman will circle back to you after we hear from Ryan. Ryan, can you just kind of walk through some of the updates that have happened in that area? And just your perspective from a city engineer perspective, from your city engineer seat on the safety of that intersection from a design standpoint.
I'll start with Highway 97 and then work northwards towards the entrance of the development at 213th Court North and North Shore Trail. So just recently, MnDOT has completed some improvements on Highway 97 that included designated turn lanes at the intersection of North Shore Trail and Highway 97, basically based on the number of cars that had rear end crashes that were just sitting there waiting to make a left turn in the actual lane. So they made their improvements there, but another thing that the city has recently done on North Shore before this project even was proposed is we went through a speed study on the entire section of North Shore Trail, North Shore Drive. And if you recall, the posted speed limits in this portion of North Shore is 35 miles an hour, right? So very relatively low speed that we're talking about on our local roadway. The roadway is one of our designated state aid routes because of the connectivity that it does include by connecting to a state road, and then by looping it around, we're able to, maximize our state aid funding that way. But with that said, we also then designed any of the improvements that were touching North Shore Trail here to state aid standards. So in the point that we just do a minor pavement repair project, we would not have to do any future recons to address any state aid standards or updating to that point. So with that being said, you're coming off of 97, you're coming either direction you come off of 97, you're coming at a 90-degree turn, right? Mm-hmm. So in theory, you shouldn't be exceeding the speed limit of 35, but if you can actually get up to 35, you're still hitting it pretty hard in the 215 feet before you start hitting the taper of the bypass, okay? So this bypass has a 180-foot taper before we go to full width of an actual another lane that's being constructed east of the existing roadway itself. So the driver lanes on North Shore are 12 foot each. The bypass lane is another 12 feet plus a whole another 3-foot of shoulder that's paved, a 3-foot bituminous shoulder and another 2-foot gravel shoulder.
Okay.
So that provides enough space for a semi to get around a car that if for some reason actually has to wait to turn in this development because the traffic counts coming southward on North Shore are pretty low. Our majority of our traffic is heading north, off of 97 and heading north into the residential areas. But with the state aid standard road, 180-foot taper, and then another 250 feet is a full width of the roadway to allow the left turn into the development and cars to come around them. But then there's also another 180-foot taper on the north side, so you can slowly taper back in. Most cars are going to taper in well within that 180 foot, but if for some reason you wanted to use 180 foot at a 35 mile an hour, that's why it's that length. So with that being said, and then the side or the shoulders are all, state aid standards too, and will be restored and all that stuff too. So traffic on North Shore is going to be improved with the improvements that are planned part of this project. The turning movements allow for any vehicle size to get through this area. Even if 2 cars are sitting there trying to make a left turn, a semi is still going to have adequate spacing to bypass around them in a whole full 12-foot road. And if the driver is an unexperienced driver or needs a little more room, that's where the 3-foot extra paved with shoulders provided. And if I guess they're a really bad driver, there's still another 2 foot of gravel to get around. So the spacing in that area is, much better than even stuff on Headwaters Parkway. In the areas that you are newer west of Fenway and Headwaters Parkway, between the concrete median and the curb on the other side of the road on the single lane areas, we're 16 feet face to face on Headwaters Parkway, which is 45 miles an hour. That meets state aid standards. So just trying to compare some roadways to other roadways within the city. So we're more than confident that we're proposing safe improvements that will last and meet future state aid standards. So if the city just even comes and does some minor maintenance and wants to use state aid funding on this project, we already have these intersection improvements that meet those standards. So we don't have to go back and reconstruct something to make it state aid eligible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. That's helpful. I know that we all have in our, you know, we know that is been a troubled intersection or stretch in the past, but it's helpful to hear the planned improvements and just some context around
should
how this
also
relates to
note-
other developments.
I should
Go ahead.
also note, even within those taper areas, you know, when you taper back to the existing lane, we're still full width pavement just because of constructability wise. Otherwise you couldn't pave the taper. So about 610 feet total is a whole nother 12-foot lane out there plus the 3-foot shoulder. So there's even the taper itself, you got more pavement than when I talk about taper lengths to you guys. If you would show up Donovan, if you showed the plan, you could see where we start the full pavement and then run that for 610 feet.
Yeah, I did not show the plan. Maybe that's something maybe you want to share.
I can't log into drives where I'm at right now, but it's more than adequate what they need. It's the safety's been all met, the state aid standards are met, and just, you know, we're talking about a 35-mile-an-hour road too.
Mayor Bain, can I just, as someone who travels this road probably almost daily, I would just support what Ryan said in terms of the improvements that have already been made, have made a significant improvement. So if they're going to improve that area even more, that's great.
That's helpful. That's helpful perspective. Other questions that we may have, let's just kind of open it up for, actually, I did want to circle back. Chief Newman, Chief Peterson had kind of asked about kind of any concerns around, from a fire perspective, around distance and whether there's enough space. Do you just want to weigh in on any concerns you may have or your thoughts?
No issues for fire.
Well, there we go. Council, any want to pick at that a little bit? Any follow-ups?
Yeah, Mara, that would have been my question, whether or not the radius is in around that loop were adequate for the fire trucks to get around that corner. It's kind of hard to visualize it. So,
yes.
But if Al doesn't have a problem with it, it's fine with me.
Right.
One other thing we did do just to work closely with the fire chief is we took his largest vehicle and really analyzed the vertical and horizontal curves too. So nothing would bottom out anywhere if there was any of those issues, just to make sure that when they go through that loop, that his back of his truck wasn't scraping on anything. So we reviewed that pretty thoroughly. That's something that probably would have never been done the old way of doing the process, but just to make sure we didn't have any issues with fire trucks getting through that radius area.
Well, that answered my question. Thank you.
I have my questions answered as well, Mayor Bean.
All right. If there is, so the resolution on the table is on page 125 of our packets, resolution 05242105. If someone's ready to make a motion.
Mayor Bain, I move to adopt resolution number 05242105, a resolution approving final plat and PUD for Forest Hills Preserved Planned Unit Development.
And I'll second.
There's a motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Munson. Further discussion. We didn't have a summary wrap-up conclusions on this. We jumped right into a motion, which I'm happy to do, but also happy to provide if council has any feedback or kind of points you want to make at this time. Any discussion items?
I guess I just make a comment that I do tend to support the decisions of the Planning Commission. So this is a little unusual for me, but after reviewing the materials and listening to the discussion thoroughly today, I'm convinced that this is the right decision to move forward with approval.
Very good. Any other additional discussion? I would just add, also always appreciate planning commission's work on these topics. In my mind, this comes down to density as well as staff's feedback on some of the specific planning commission concerns. And so hearing the roundtable and the nodding of heads from the staff perspective that this is acceptable from their perspectives. I am sensitive on density, but also know that cost of housing is not going down and access to affordable housing is important. And we are, I think, in the mode of having to have more density. I don't always love density and wells together. However, in my mind, the time to make that objection would have been at the front end of the project during the preliminary process. And that wasn't an item of concern. I trust that, you know, we've got a history of wells that have worked very well in a number of parts of the city. And also, again, it's just kind of the timing of the objection is problematic for me. I'm not going to say I won't have an issue on another project, but this one, I'm comfortable that the use of wells and also the density is just part of what it's going to take if this particular plat is going to develop. And I think the development is good for all of us. So I'm happy to support this tonight, but also want to give kudos to Planning Commission and also staff who have worked really hard on this application. So much appreciated. Any other comments this evening? With that, Karen, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
On mute.
Councilmember Munson, you may
Oh,
have.
sorry. Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Aye, and motion approved. Mr. Johnson, thank you for being here this evening. We wish you luck on your project.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
All right. With that, we are going to close out our action items on the agenda this evening. We are going to move back to staff and council updates. I did miss both Jackie and Donovan as part of staff updates, and so we'll give a quick opportunity. Donovan, you're on camera still. Any further updates for council this evening?
Mayor's member council, I'd like to also echo what Ryan said about construction project. Well, I guess, well, also I'll say from my side, many more conversations regarding development. It looks like some large properties are changing hands. So I think we'll see at least one proposal soon. I mean, Park Trails and Lakes Commission had to look at it for a concept plan for property east of Hawthorne Heights. I think we'll see that in a concept form. Council will see that next few months, and also lots of complaints, lots of enforcement things because the snow melted and people are out. So that's how the cycle goes. I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Any questions for Donovan this evening? All right, and Jackie.
I am getting ready to send the June senior newsletter off for final approval. And then starting July, it's going to bi-monthly to keep it in line with what was done before. I am wrapping up a communications plan for Arts in the Park, and I'll be working with Jamie closely on that. And I have a really good start to the quarterly city newsletter. And as things start getting more in line for the summer events, that will come together nicely.
Thank you. Any questions for Jackie this evening? All right. Moving on to council updates, we will start with Councilmember Husnick and then move to Councilmember Byström.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the EDA joint workshop with the downtown committee this evening along with you. And so we'll let you explain a little bit more, but we're kicking off for downtown planning. And so it'll be kind of an exciting thing coming up here. So, which will take lots of time. And I have no other further updates.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Husnick, Councilmember Byström, and then Councilmember Munson.
I attended the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission meeting, and Jamie covered the bulk of that in her report and other discussion this evening. I also attended the YMCA hosted a transportation focus group with Washington County. This was a follow-up to the transit needs study that was done a number of years ago. Their strategic priorities that were accepted by the county board, they're now starting to do a little deeper dive into them. And one of them is to create the one-stop for travel information and referral services piece of that grow existing services section of priorities that the board approved. And they did a focus group with a group of us this week relative to older adults and persons with disabilities. You know, what is the best way to kind of inventory and compile and keep current that available transportation information, and what is the best mechanism for residents to access it? How would it work best? What kinds of partners might we secure in the community to help get the word out and those sorts of things? So that was really interesting. And I just want to acknowledge some citizen communication on the sales tax discussion and the utility rate hikes. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Byström. Councilmember Munson, and then Councilmember Valento.
Thanks, Mayor Bain. I also attended the downtown committee meeting, and we'll let you talk about that. Looking forward to what that's going to look like in the future. And I attended the FLA meeting last week, and I heard, I think Jamie's still on here, some nice feedback from Paul and Al in terms of cooperation, so that was good to hear. I know there was one concern, but I think you guys are on it in terms of having weekend support in case something is needed on the weekend. So just told them I would mention that. And then I got a couple, I don't know, when you're at these meetings, they talk about other things too, but some Castlewood feedback. And so I just thought I would share it, that they felt that it wasn't up to par as it was last year. So I just thought I'd pass that along. And I don't know if that's because it's the beginning of the season or, but it was from people that golf there a lot. So I was pretty trusted feedback.
I'm muted. Thank you, Councilmember Munson. Just a couple of quick items from me. Also attended the downtown committee workshop, which was tonight is kickoff night. The team will be moving quickly and working through their analysis, their next planned presentation, and the next level of engagement with the downtown committee is the meeting that is scheduled for the fourth Monday in June, which is our next meeting. And so nice to see that that is moving along. Council, you are always welcome to attend those. We notice those as a potential quorum of council. And so I'd like to continue to extend the invitation. And also a big topic of conversation tonight was, just quality and what our plan is for public engagement. And I would just look for everyone's help in trying to find the engagement plan that works for Forest Lake, where we're getting the right level of engagement. I know that the downtown planners seem to have a fairly robust plan and a fairly robust toolkit for that, but obviously they need our assistance in shaping that to what works for our community and what works as we're coming out of this post-COVID world. Obvious things like Arts in the Park are on their calendar, and putting themselves in front of some important kind of specific community groups is on their calendar. But as we're going through this process, if it feels like engagement is less than what we need it to be, let's have that conversation so that we can adjust and make sure we've got the right feedback and input. The other thing I would mention is I've had a number of resident feedbacks around problem properties and just code enforcement, and some of the couple of properties that have been was the part of the impetus for us to have the council workshop recently on just what code enforcement looks like. And given the recent feedback that we've received from the courts on enforcement, or the timing of enforcement of going through our current process, I was just reflecting on one of the options that Pete and Amanda had put on the table, which was around civil, some level of civil action, which we historically have not done. And I guess I would just look for some feedback, and happy to bring this back at a workshop if it needs a broader discussion. But I guess I'd just be looking for some feedback, not tonight, but in the future from Pete and Amanda, to just better understand, what does that look like? What does the timeline for that process look like? Is it defined? Is this a well orchestrated machine where you could say, oh yeah, average municipal court case on this type of a scenario is X number of months and X number of dollars? Or is it really across the board and it's hard for us to tell going in on how much it's going to take and how much money that would, what is the cost, both time and legal expense? I could just use some better context and I think council, if I could speak to council, maybe all of us could use some better context, because I think that is the question that's a little bit on the table, is do we want to head down the path? And I guess my question back to Pete and Amanda is, well, what does that mean? And to the extent that's known, I'm not, and maybe again, there isn't a common scenario, but something for staff to think about as we are, continuing to get some complaints, and we've got a couple of properties that are a little bit at a pinch point, and just trying to decide what's a good resolution for the city, for neighboring residents, and then also for the resident that actually owns the property, that having their neighbors gripe at them and have us repeatedly sending letters isn't also the greatest experience. So looking for some options, but could also use some guidance on just what does that look like. Again, Pete and Amanda, I know I'm putting you on the spot tonight, so don't need a response tonight, but something to think about, of additional information that might be helpful for council as we kind of consider next steps.
Can do.
Thank you so much. That is all I have
Mara?
for,
Mara,
yes, please.
did we forget Councilmember Valento?
Oh, we forgot Councilmember Valento. I am sorry this evening. I even have a list in front of me. I'm not following it. Councilmember Valento, I apologize.
No worries. So I attended the Watershed District meeting a few weeks ago, and they expressed that they would like to be in contact with city staff more often, and potentially set up quarterly meetings. They did have a special meeting on May 18th. They went over the comments that they received during the comment period for the watershed management plan. And they have June 20th as the proposed public hearing regarding that plan. And then I attended the Rush Line BRT project meeting, and they have posted an environmental on their website, and they're currently hosting a public comment period until June 25th. And I would think it would be appropriate if the city as a collective posted a comment, but I am all ears on that.
I'll just make one comment that the city and both watershed districts and all city staff meet monthly, first Wednesday of the month. All staff members are welcome to join it. Rice Creek obviously has their traditional people that attend it. Comfort Lake, Forest Lake has switched to the number of people or who attends it here frequently, just with the number of staffs change order over. So, but all the projects in the whole entire city are discussed. They already been emailed the document for the first Wednesday in June to provide any updates they want incorporated in the report. So their whole entire staff has that option to add or delete or modify what's already in the report. And then at that monthly meeting, we discuss every single project that's happening in town or projects that are currently going through permitting process too.
Thanks for that update.
Councilmember Valento, I would add on to that. This is not the first time we've heard that feedback, and I wonder if the disconnect is maybe more at the board to board level. And I know that the Watershed District really appreciated being part of the conversation that we had recently with Parks, Trails, and Lakes. And I wonder if there's just an opportunity for us to, if staff are connecting well and working frequently, I wonder if maybe part of that feedback could be accommodated at the council level. And I guess I would look for some opportunity, connecting the dots closer more frequently, and if that's every 6 months. And because I think that was actually an outcome on one of those discussion points, is let's get our council and their board together more often. And I wonder if that's where one of those feedback points is. they may not know our staff are working, in frequent contact, and it might be the gap might be with us. So let's maybe collaborate offline on what that might look like and what those agenda topics might be. And I guess Ryan, from your perspective, as you're working through those, if there's topics that their board and council should be working on more closely, even if it's just at the update level, my suspicion is that's where the perceived gap might be.
Yeah, we'll try to communicate anything early as possible, even the North Shore Circle street utility improvements that you guys authorized plans and specs for. We've already met with Watershed and some of their staff to walk that project area, just to potentially talk about what could be coming or what constraints would be working within that project. So that, we're a year ahead on, trying to be, out of projects and working with them. So, and that's why we have those coordination meetings and to provide any information on there. Last one, they provided something about a greenway corridor. That was the first we heard about it, but again, we're early talking about it. And that obviously next steps would be come to probably a city council workshop to bring elected officials into the loop of that conversation and kind of what their goals and criteria are, what they're trying to achieve with something of a new project like that, or an enhancement that would be out in the rural areas. So, some of that stuff, we'll engage you guys as much as possible. Some of it's can be handled at a staff level, but projects that are already known, such as North Shore Circle, we've already engaged and walked some of these sites with them. So, all the whole planning, permitting process through the entire project is pretty efficient and easy, I guess. So.
And maybe a logical follow-up to that is even just our regular council agenda where we are talking about that, or that workshop item, Ryan, that you're talking about, maybe we just do a special invite to that Watershed District Board just so that they know they are included, and just maybe that's an opportunity for us to bridge that gap a bit. All right. I think we are done with staff updates. Anything further? We have a closed session on our agenda this evening, and I believe we have a separate Zoom link for that. So we will be leaving this meeting and going into that closed session. Does someone have the motion to move us into a closed session?
I do, Mayor Bain. I move to close the meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3C3 to discuss PID 22.032. .21.12.0002 and PID 22.032.21.13.0003. The closed session will be held in a separate Zoom online room and will commence immediately. Once the closed session is completed, the City Council will reconvene the open meeting portion of tonight's City Council meeting in the regularly scheduled Zoom online room. There being no further items on the agenda, once back in open session, the council will simply adjourn the meeting.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second from Councilmember Husnick. Karen, can we have a roll call to move us into the closed session?
Councilmember Husnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Byström,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
Aye.
and Mayor Bain.
Aye, and we're moved into closed session.